Any of the brothers in the given? السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله رب العالمين. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له هو الاول والاخر والظاهر والباطن وهو على كل شيء قدير. واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله ارسل الله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا الى الله باذنه وسراجا منيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على الحبيب المصطفى وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه، وارض عنا معهم بفضلك وكرمك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم آمين. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All credit and acknowledgement, love and devotion, all of our worship is due only to Allah. Endless He is in His glory, the Almighty, all-powerful. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the bottom of our hearts. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regularity on our tongues. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the words that He taught us. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah. And we bear witness that He has sent to us His final prophet and messenger, Nabiullah, Rasulullah, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet, upon His family members, His loved ones, companions and friends, and upon all the men and women who walk in His footsteps, who adhere to His path, and who are champions of His mission. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He would make each and every one of us among them in this life and in the next. Ameen. My dear brothers and sisters, I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In a couple of locations in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes reference to what was one of the most despicable practices in the history of mankind. One of the most horrible cultural norms that has ever existed. In Surah Al-Nahl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُم بِالْأُنثَىٰ ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ يَتَوَارَىٰ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ أَيُمْسِكُهُ عَلَىٰ هُونٍ أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ فِي التُّرَابِ أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when those men were given the good news of having a daughter, they would become ashamed and they would become so angry. They would become enraged with this news. And they would have to make this decision, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention here. They would hide themselves in humiliation from their people of this, the perception of negativity of this news of having a daughter. And they would ask themselves this ridiculous question: should I keep her and be in shame, or should I commit her and bury her to the earth? This is an infant child that they're talking about. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds, أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. Indeed, how horrible, how evil is their thinking, their philosophy. Now, brothers and sisters, the prophetic mission, amongst the many things it came to correct this particular injustice and all of the other injustices that were connected to it. This sense of shame that was associated to daughters and then to women at large in that society and in societies around the world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention of the same notion in Surah Al-Taqweed when He quotes those same daughters who were buried on the day of judgment, when they ask, بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ? For what crime was I killed? They will ask their fathers this question. Now, of course, we know that Islam came and eradicated these practices. The prophetic mission was designed to bring justice to women as well as other groups in society that were mistreated. But that was 14 centuries ago. And yet, we still see in the world struggles that our sisters continue to face. We still see in the world issues that continue to arise, despite the fact that 14 centuries ago, the Prophet ﷺ had reminded us, خَيْرُكُمْ لِنِسَائِكُمْ. The best of you is the best to the women around you. Just to share with you some statistics locally, here in our nation, in the society that we're a part of, 4 in 10 women express that they have experienced some kind of unwelcome advance and harassment. 7 in 10 women say that they have felt discriminated against in some form or the other, unfairly. And 1/3 of those experience that kind of unfair discrimination in the workplace. Now, we would never expect someone to do something like that to our daughters, right? But yet these statistics are real. My brothers and sisters, there's a staggering number, just further example, the number of women who express that they do not even feel comfortable and feel that they have been treated well by their own healthcare providers. The numbers are staggering. And by the way, when you start to factor in matters of race, the numbers get even worse. My brothers and sisters, the fact is that this problem continues to persist. It may be that we no longer take daughters and bury them in the sand. It may be that we no longer kill our daughters. But it is still true that we kill their spirits. It is still true that we kill their dreams and their hopes. It is still true that we bury their confidence and we bury their worth. Now, I want you to truly internalize how this plays out in our own homes and in our own community. Imagine, brothers and sisters, that you are about to make one of the most important decisions of your life. Let's say that you're a CEO of some big, company, and you're contemplating about shutting down one of the branches or one of the lines because you've done all the research and you're really worried about it and it's stressing you out and the risk is too high, and so you decided that you're going to shut it down. And you come home and your wife or your sister, a woman in your life, she notices how stressed you are. She notices how concerned you are. And so she asks, so you tell her, this is what's going on, this is what's making me worried, I'm really, really concerned. Now imagine that she responds by offering some alternative perspective. She says, hey, well, wait a minute. I'm not so sure you should do that. What about this and this and this? She starts giving you, factors that she wants you to consider. She gives you an alternative approach. Instead of shutting it down, why don't you do this instead? Imagine that she said to you, how about you talk to my cousin? He's really knowledgeable about this information as well. My brothers and sisters, how do we think that many people will react? Will they be annoyed? Will they get angry? What do you know? Is that how they respond? Will they laugh or just tune it out? I don't know what she's talking about. Is this the approach that we think might happen? Now compare our response, brothers and sisters, to the response of the Prophet ﷺ when he was in an even more serious moment in his life. A story that all of us are aware of. When ﷺ had his first encounter with Jibreel alayhi salam, and he ran home from Hira. And he comes home and he tells his wife, cover me. And we know this part of the story, right? He's so stressed out, he's so worried, he's so concerned, he doesn't know. And then he even expresses what he thinks is going on. He expresses that he thinks he might be losing his mind. He says to her, لَقَدْ خَشِيتُ عَلَى نَفْسِي. I am worried about my own state of mind. And what does Khadija radiallahu anha do? What does she say? لا يخزيك الله أبدا. She swears, فوالله لا يخزيك الله أبدا. والله إنك لا تصل الرحم وتصدق الحديث وتحمل الكلمة وتكسب المعدوم وتقري الضيف وتعين على نوائب الحق. She says to him, by Allah, Allah will not humiliate you in such a way. You are the one who brings ties of kinship together. You speak the truth and support the truth. You bear the burdens of others and you help those in need. You treat the guests so well. You work against those social factors that continue to plague those who are in need and those who are helpless. Allah would not humiliate you in such a way. My brothers and sisters, what is Khadija radiallahu anha doing? Is she not disagreeing with the Prophet? Is she not offering an alternative perspective? Is she not questioning, his line of thinking and offering him another? And remember what she did after that. She even said, hey, I have a cousin. What else have they over? Would you go and speak with him? Let's see what he has to say. And how did the Prophet respond, brothers and sisters? Rasulullah took her seriously. He took her perspective so seriously. He went and visited. He consulted. He took her advice. And that advice was so critical to him in that moment. The difference between us, brothers and sisters, and the Prophet ﷺ, who we seek and aspire to live like, is that he took the women in his life seriously. And that's my focus for today. You see, there are many things that must be done, that can be done, in order for us to address the mistreatment that our sisters continue to face to this day, in the world around us, in our own homes, wherever it might be. But today, at least we can start with this foundational aspect. Taking our sisters, our wives, our mothers, whoever it might be in our lives, taking the women of our community seriously. And you might say to yourself, well, wait a minute, this is Khadija radiallahu anha. You know, she's the mother of believers, she is the great, she is one of the women from Jannah. This must be an exceptional case. I'm not sure if this applies to us. My brothers and sisters, what I'm telling you today is that it is not, I'm not so focused about the rank of Khadija radiallahu anha, as great as it is. I'm focused on the established Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is from the established Sunnah of Rasulullah, and today I'm going to give you the evidences. It wasn't just her who he took so seriously, brothers and sisters. Consider, for example, how seriously he took Asma bint Abi Bakr, who was, by the way, young at that time, when he put her in charge of one of the most important projects of his life. Which project was that? She was put in charge of Hijrah. She was put in charge of the migration. It was her who would collect information from her brother. By the way, she had a brother. It was her who would collect information from him. It was her who would then, sift through that information and share the important pieces with Abu Bakr Siddiq, her father, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was her who would gather the food for them and bring it to them when they needed it in Ghadfawah. It was her who would make sure that the tracks were covered behind her. It was her who gave them the signal, you're good to go. She was put in charge of the project of escaping from Mecca. My brothers and sisters, that's how seriously the Prophet ﷺ took women in his life. Let's continue. We have the example of Nusayba bint Ka'b. Nusayba bint Ka'b was one of the few women who was there during the Bay'at al-Aqaba al-Thani, the second pledge of allegiance that the people from Yathrib gave to the Prophet. Now all the men are going one by one, right? Pledging to the Prophet, asking him to come and live in Yathrib, asking him to make it their home, asking him to make Yathrib his home, right? One after the other, and she's there and she stands up and says, I wish to give my pledge as well. The Prophet did not say, don't worry about it, sister, you're a woman, let the men in your life take care of it, they're the ones that are going to have to do the heavy lifting going home. He took her pledge, brothers and sisters. He took her pledge on that day. And it goes further. Nusayba bint Ka'b was skilled with the sword. She was a fighter, she was fierce. And on the day of Uhud, when many of the other companions, some running this way to go grab from the spoils of war, and then some running this way to escape the surprise attack that was led by Khalid Walid before his Islam, Nusayba bint Ka'b was the first to stand up and guard the Prophet ﷺ when his life was in danger. She was the first, and she stood there and threatened men double and triple her size, putting her life on the line for the life of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ took her seriously enough to put her in his own guard. My brothers and sisters, the examples continue. There are the examples of Hakim, and even the example of Zaynab bint Muhammad, the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ. May Allah be pleased with both of them. Both of them, because of their efforts and their patience and their constant attempts to work with their families and their husbands, eventually their husbands accepted Islam. And it's not just about one member of the family. Take the example of Juwayriyah bint al-Harith, who, because of her entire tribe, or a majority of her tribe, accepted Islam. My brothers and sisters, the Prophet took these women seriously enough to put them in charge of da'wah efforts. The examples continue, brothers and sisters, with the example of Aisha radiallahu anha. When the Prophet ﷺ passed, and the companions would dispute over a matter. Who would they go to resolve their dispute? If they didn't know, what would the Prophet ﷺ do or say in this situation? Who would they go to resolve that dispute? They would go to Aisha radiallahu anha. For example, there was a time when Amr ibn As, one of the other great companions and knowledgeable companions, the women asked him, when we make wudu, many of us have very long hair, and we tie it in a bun. And so when we make wudu, do we have to open all of the hair and wash all of it every single time? And so Amr ibn As said, yes, you have to wash the entire hair every time you make wudu. So they did this for a few days, and making wudu became an incredible burden. To which point, one of them said, we need to go speak to Aisha. We need to go speak to her and see what she says. So they went to her and they said, we had this question. We asked Amr, and he said, you have to wash the entirety of your hair. And Aisha, she started to laugh. And she said, then let Amr ibn As know it's better for us to just cut our hair. Right? Like as a joke, right? And then she explained to them, I always tie my hair. And I always make wudu by wiping over the front of my hair. And the Prophet ﷺ watched me do this and accepted me do this and encouraged me to do so. Changing the fatwa of another companion. The Prophet ﷺ and the companions trusted Aisha radiallahu anha to be the first school of Islam. That's how seriously he took her. The Prophet ﷺ took his daughter Fatima radiallahu anha so seriously. It was one of the few occasions that is reported that he would stand up when somebody entered the room. It was when his daughter would enter. And ask her, a room filled with men, and ask her, come sit right next to me. Sometimes to his left, sometimes to his right. Sitting there, and then he continues his meeting. Right? The Prophet ﷺ took her very seriously, brothers and sisters, to the point where he used to say that Fatima is from me, and if you anger her, then you anger me. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was on his deathbed, and Fatima radiallahu anha, she came to visit, he called her close, and he secretly told her something. He secretly told her one thing that made her cry, and one thing that made her laugh. And she would not tell anybody until after the Prophet ﷺ passed, and Aisha asked her, would you tell us what he told you? And she said, he told me first that he knows that this is his final illness, and in this illness he will pass. And I cried. And then he called me close again, and he told me the second thing. He told me that I would be the first from his family to follow him, and that I would be the queen of the women of Jannah. SubhanAllah. My brothers and sisters, we take this story so emotionally, but notice the Prophet ﷺ took Fatima so seriously, he gave her some insight into the limited knowledge of al-ghayb that he had. No one else was told when they're going to die, or when the Prophet ﷺ was going to pass. She was. My brothers and sisters, this is how seriously Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam took the women in his life. It is an established sunnah, there can be no question about it anymore. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us a community that also establishes the sunnah of taking women seriously. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to encourage us and inspire us by the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen the sisters and the women of our community. Allahumma ameen. Brothers and sisters, raise your hands and speak to Allah in front. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ومولانا النبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, today we recognize the established sunnah of the Prophet, the way that he treated the women around him, the way that he took them seriously, the way that he honored them. And we recognize that this is not just some one-time thing that happened for a certain select group of women. This was something that was from his habits and his ways. This is from his tradition. We love to live by the tradition of Rasulullah, right? Well, let us ensure that we live by those aspects of his tradition that would actually solve problems that exist today. I mean, what kind of foolish people would we be if we lived by those Sunnah of the Prophet, which were so easy to do and so superficial, and we did not use the mission of Rasulullah to address modern issues that are affecting real people in real time? Brothers and sisters, I have to speak to you as a man of faith with honesty. I have to share with you honestly that one of the great lies that people continue to tell themselves is that somehow modernity or Western civilization or liberalism has solved the problems that women have experienced throughout history. It's not true. In fact, what has happened, in my judgment, is that a facade has been created, a facade of having solved those problems, while in reality those problems are even deeper and deeper in corrupting our culture. So, this is even more tragic when it comes to Muslims and the Muslim community. When Muslims rush to modernize, and they rush to liberalize and to identify just purely with Western civilization, and they adopt these secular philosophies without bringing Islamic ethic to the table, it's so tragic that they leave behind the very ethics and the very tradition that would help to resolve the problems that we see existing today, particularly when it comes to our sisters. Islam and Islamic ethics should be used to inspire solutions, not to be abandoned because the modernity is more expedient. My brothers and sisters, March has been designated as Women's History Month, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with recognizing a month that is about women's history. But today I remember the incredible women of history of Islam, and I'm inspired by their example. And while having a month dedicated to history of women is fine, to me it feels just as superficial as the so-called solutions that have been exacted upon society, that really have not worked. The real solution, my brothers and sisters, we will find in our faith. Now, part of such faith-based solutions, brothers and sisters, have to happen in our families and in our communities. And I just want to share some insights with you. Particularly when it comes to fathers of daughters, and men in the community. Fathers, you have to ensure that you are giving your daughters the kind of love and affection that is so overwhelming and so powerful that they never feel the need to seek that love and affection somewhere else. They should receive that from their fathers. This applies to both children, but particularly to the daughters of our community. And the community must be an extension of the fathers. How so? Our community must give our daughters and our sisters so much honor and so much dignity that they never feel that they need to go elsewhere in order to seek that honor or in order to seek that dignity. They know that they have it best in the Muslim community. Furthermore, fathers, we have to be mindful of how we treat the mothers of our daughters. Because if we mistreat them, and I'm not just talking about abuse, I'm talking about even just ignoring them or not taking them seriously, then our daughters will learn to accept the same thing for themselves. And you would never accept that for your daughter. But if you don't guard against it, that will be what manifests, unfortunately. My brothers and sisters, I want to conclude with one last story from the tradition. I know I'm going a little over, but the story is really powerful, and it's the story of when Aisha radiallahu anha, when there was this slander against her character. You can do the research and look up the story. It's a lengthy story. But the point is, for those of you who don't know, that her character was called into question to the point where even the Prophet ﷺ did not know if she was innocent or guilty of what she was being accused of. And she was so upset over this, she left his house and she went back to her family's house. She went to stay with her father and mother, in his house. And there she stayed for a while until finally revelation came down. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cleared her name in the ayat of the Quran. In the beginning of Surah An-Nur, You'll find it there. And the Prophet ﷺ was so happy. He was so overjoyed. And this thing went on for like a little over a month. Until finally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent ayat clearing her name, and he got so excited and he rushed to the house of Abu Bakr to tell Aisha. And he walks in and he says, Ya Aisha, there's good news for you in the Quran. And he recites the ayat. Now, Aisha radiallahu anha, she was still upset. She's still angry. But the Prophet didn't believe her in the beginning. And her mother asked her, aren't you going to get up and thank the Prophet? And you know how she responded? She said, Allah is the one who cleared me, I'm going to thank Allah. She said so out of her anger. Right? She was not chided for it. There were no ayat that came down afterwards chiding her for this attitude. She was upset. She was hurt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet took that seriously as well. They took her emotions seriously. My brothers and sisters, the last thing I want to share for you today is just a direct message to our sisters. Our sisters, in the pursuit of taking women seriously, you must take yourselves seriously. You must take yourselves so seriously, remembering that you are believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are mu'minat, called out in the Quran. You must take yourselves seriously, recognizing that you are from the ummah of Rasulullah. You are from the ummah of Aisha and Fatima and Khadija and Nusayba and all of these other incredible women. And the way you present yourself, remember, you don't need to fit into some other person's mold in order to be dignified or to be taken seriously or appreciated. Your focus, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. And don't let anyone ever forget that you belong to that woman. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to learn the lessons of the Sunnah of Rasulullah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our shoulders and to strengthen our hearts in order to be able to live by these lessons. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He would bless and honor our sisters. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He would protect them in ways that only He could, and protect them even against the shortcomings of the rest of society. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He would continue to honor our sisters and to honor the women of this ummah. Allahumma ameen. Brothers and sisters, I have some announcements and then we will stand for salah, inshallah. The first of them is a reminder that there are boxes wherever you're seated, and if you'd like to take a moment and contribute whatever it is that you can, remember to make this a weekly habit, inshallah. A reminder that, alhamdulillah, we're at our new location, especially for those of you who are tuning in online today. We're at our new location. The address here is 4027 North Freeway Blvd. And as a part of moving, one of the things that I want to share with all of you and I want to encourage all of you about is that we are starting to go back to in-person activities, particularly with our Friday night activities and others as well. We're starting to go back to in-person, of course, with safety regulations and everything in place. Now, it has been a while. It has been a long time since we have, spent regular time at the masjid. And I want to encourage every single person here, my brothers and sisters, if there was at least one day that we would dedicate for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I think it should be Friday, right? And so we come for Jumaa, we take a break out of work, and we go back to work. But I want to encourage everybody here to be a part of the masjid activities on Friday night as well. Tonight, inshallah, we have a Numa Nights program. We have additional programs, just to celebrate. There's going to be some activities for the young men, for the brothers. There's going to be some activities. There's a special discussion circle for the sisters. There's going to be things for the young kids. I'm just encouraging all of you to start making it a part of your regular habits again. If you come to the masjid on Friday nights, you dedicate the Friday for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for the activities of the masjid. You be a part of the community. It's really impossible to be a part of the community via Zoom, brothers and sisters. It works for a temporary amount of time, but it's time for us to start seeing each other again, to start speaking to each other again and hanging out with each other again, and to sometimes have coffee together and to listen to a reminder. All of these things are very critical, and I really strongly encourage you guys to join us tonight. It's going to be really exciting. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you and your families, inshallah. The program starts at 7 and will conclude by 9 p.m., inshallah. I alluded to this earlier, but we do have an upcoming women's conference. Tonight's program is just going to be like a preview. But we have an upcoming women's conference on March 28th. That will be featuring Ustada Hussain, Ustada Lubna, as well as our very own Ustada Jannah. The first 50 registrants, by the way, receive a swag bag. Obviously, this is for the sisters only, so brothers don't be registering because of the swag bag. You can register the women if you want to, of course. There's also there's a hike that's being hosted by our Mommy and Me program. So this is not a community hike, but specifically for mothers of young children and their young children. That's going to be on Saturday, March 27th at 11 a.m. You can register online. There's also an upcoming Ramadan or pre-Ramadan kids craft activity happening on April 3rd at the Tarbiya House Natomas and March 27th, the week before, at the Tarbiya House Roseville. So you can register. This is a good way to get the kids excited for Ramadan. By the way, we are seeking teachers or aspiring teachers or teachers who have some experience to help us with one of our upcoming programs. So if you have any experience or would like to gain experience, please reach out to either of our office managers at either location. We also have, there's no tafsirah program tonight in Roseville, but like I said, tonight, inshallah, here in Thomas, we will have our own next program. We really look forward to seeing all of you. And then just a reminder to please maintain all of the safety precautions that we have been going by. And then we have some dua requests. So the first dua request is for our very own dear sister Amira. This is Imam Sharif's wife. She's undergoing surgery today. Please keep her in your dua. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it a successful procedure. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put barakah in the hands of the doctors and healthcare providers who are working with her. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give her a full and complete recovery. Allahumma ameen. Also, Sister Julia, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, will be undergoing further surgery on Monday, inshallah. Please make dua for her as well. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it a successful procedure, to put barakah in hands in the efforts of those healthcare providers that will be working with her. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give her a complete and full recovery and a complete and full healing. Allahumma ameen. Also, a dua request. This one is, just really tragic news. A dear friend of mine, Ibrahim, it's actually the brother-in-law of Imam Aziz. And him and his wife were expecting, and unfortunately, just a few days before the due date, they lost their young child. So it's very tragic news. It really moved me and so many others. They had the janazah for the baby already. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give the family patience in this incredibly trying and difficult time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give healing to their broken hearts. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reunite them, the entire family in Jannah one day. Allahumma ameen. And of course, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give his wife, Sister Rima, full and complete healing and recovery as well. Allahumma ameen. Dua request for Sister Shakila, the mother of Sister Sunnah, who subhanAllah passed away just a few days ago after a lengthy struggle with MS and Parkinson's. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that every single moment that she suffered is actually included and rewarded doubly in her good deeds. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants her a lofty garden from the gardens of paradise, and that He heals the broken hearts of her loved ones and family members who are left behind. And finally, dua request for the uncle of Brother Mu'taz. His name is Jihad Jabal. He is in the ICU and is induced. He has been in an induced coma because of COVID complications. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show us a miracle from him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him a complete and full recovery and to return him to his loved ones safe and sound. Allahumma ameen. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الاحياء منهم والاموات انك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. واقم الصلاه واستغفر الله والمسلمين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله